What if I told you that in the 14th century, a single disease wiped out nearly 60% of Europe's population? It was a time of great prosperity and expansion. Trade routes crisscrossed the continents, connecting distant lands and cultures like never before. But with this newfound connectivity came an unforeseen danger. From the heartlands of Asia, a silent killer began its deadly journey towards Europe. This was the onset of the Black Death, a plague that would become one of the deadliest pandemics in human history. Originating in the dry plains of Central Asia, the disease hitched a ride on black rats that stowed away on the merchant ships traveling along the Silk Road. Unbeknownst to the traders and sailors, they were transporting a time bomb that would decimate entire civilizations. As the ships docked in European harbors, the disease quickly spread. It moved from port cities to inland towns, carried by fleas on rats and unwitting human hosts. The people of Europe, having never encountered such a disease, were ill-prepared for the onslaught. Fear and confusion reigned as the Black Death made its relentless march across the continent. The symptoms of the plague were as mysterious as they were deadly. High fevers, painful swellings, and dark patches on the skin became the harbingers of doom for those infected. The disease struck swiftly and without mercy, leaving entire communities in despair and chaos. No one could understand why it was happening or how to stop it. It was a time of uncertainty, a time of fear. The once bustling markets fell silent, the lively streets deserted. Homes, once filled with laughter and warmth, now echoed with the cries of the sick and dying. The Black Death was not just a disease, it was a force of nature, indiscriminate and relentless. The Black Death swept across Europe like wildfire, leaving devastation in its wake. The world stood helpless before its onslaught, forever changed by its passage. The 14th century was marked by the shadow of the Black Death, a somber reminder of the fragility of human life and civilization. Imagine a disease so severe it caused fever, chills, and gruesome swellings filled with pus. This was the grim reality of the bubonic plague, also known as the Black Death. The symptoms were not only painful and grotesque, but they were also a terrifying harbinger of the near-certain death that was to follow. The first signs of the disease often seemed benign, similar to a common cold or flu. Victims would start to feel weak, fatigued, and they would often develop a fever. But as the disease progressed, more severe and gruesome symptoms would start to manifest. The bubonic plague was named after its most horrifying symptom, the buboes. These were painful swellings that would appear in the lymph nodes, usually in the groin, armpit, or neck. They started out the size of a small egg, but they could grow to be as large as an apple. They were hard, painful to the touch, and filled with pus and blood. The skin over these swellings would often turn a dark purple or black, which is how the Black Death got its name. In addition to these buboes, victims would also suffer from severe headaches, chills, and a high fever that could reach up to 40 degrees Celsius, or 104 degrees Fahrenheit. Some victims also experienced delirium, hallucinations, and a rapid pulse. The symptoms alone were enough to cause widespread panic. The sight of a person with these gruesome swellings was enough to send people running in fear. And the fact that death usually followed within 2 to 7 days of the first symptoms only added to the terror. The high death rate was largely due to the severity of these symptoms. The buboes were not only painful, but they also hindered the body's ability to fight off the infection. The high fever and other symptoms would weaken the victim, making them even more susceptible to the disease. The symptoms of the Black Death were as terrifying as its death toll. They were a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the power of disease. And they were a grim testament to the devastating power of the bubonic plague. How do you think society responded when faced with such a deadly and mysterious disease? The Black Death undoubtedly brought about a dramatic shift in society, altering the course of history in more ways than one. As the plague tore through Europe, it left in its wake not just millions of dead, but a society grappling with fear, uncertainty, and drastic change. In the face of such a calamitous event, society often looks for someone or something to blame. In the case of the Black Death, marginalized groups such as the Jewish community bore the brunt of the scapegoating. Accused of poisoning wells to spread the disease, thousands of Jews were persecuted, their communities destroyed, exacerbating the tragedy of the plague. Religious beliefs too underwent a significant transformation. The church, once seen as a beacon of hope and salvation, was now questioned. If God was merciful, why would he allow such a catastrophe? This led to a decline in the church's authority, paving the way for the rise of skepticism and the seeds of the Reformation. The economic and political landscape, likewise, underwent a seismic shift. With a third of Europe's population wiped out, labor was suddenly in short supply. This led to a shift in power dynamics. The serfs, once tied to the land and their lords, now had bargaining power. Wages rose, and the feudal system began to crumble, marking the beginning of the end for the Middle Ages. Politically, the plague upended the established order. As nobility and clergy fell victim to the disease, power vacuums emerged, leading to political instability and the rise of new leaders. This reshuffling of power structures would have lasting effects, setting the stage for the modern world. The Black Death didn't just kill people, it transformed society in profound and lasting ways. The plague was a cataclysm of epic proportions, a turning point in human history, and its societal impact is still felt to this day. What happens to a society after it loses more than half of its population? Imagine, if you will, a world suddenly cut in half. The Black Death, Europe's bubonic plague, had just that effect. This catastrophic event reshaped society in ways that were unimaginable at the time, and its aftermath continues to reverberate even today. The immediate consequence was a drastic labor shortage. With so many lives lost, there were simply not enough hands to till the fields, tend the livestock, or run the mills. This led to a unique shift in the dynamics of supply and demand. Laborers, who were once considered expendable and undervalued, now found themselves in a position of power. Wages rose, working conditions improved, and for the first time in history, the common man had a say in his own destiny. This newfound power also led to the rise of the middle class. As workers began to earn more, they also began to spend more, leading to an economic shift. Merchants, artisans, and tradespeople found their services in high demand, and their increased wealth allowed them access to opportunities previously reserved for the nobility. But the effects of the Black Death weren't just economic. Art and culture, too, were profoundly affected. The macabre dance of death became a common theme, a stark reminder of the fleeting nature of life. Artists began to focus on individual experience and emotion, laying the groundwork for the Renaissance's emphasis on humanism. In the face of such adversity, society adapted and evolved. The plague had, in a sense, purged the old world, making way for a new one. It was a time of change, of growth, and of rebirth. The Black Death was a catastrophe of unparalleled proportions, but it also served as a catalyst for transformation. It forced society to reassess its values, its structures, and its goals, leading to changes that still shape our world today. The Black Death marked the end of an era and the beginning of a new one. What can the Black Death teach us about how societies respond to pandemics? This question brings us to the heart of our discussion today: the legacy of the Black Death. When we draw parallels between the Black Death and modern pandemics, the importance of scientific understanding in managing disease outbreaks becomes abundantly clear. The Black Death, with its grim reaper, swept across Europe in the 14th century, causing devastation and chaos. There were no microscopes, no germ theory, no antibiotics. The concept of quarantine was in its infancy, with the term itself not even coined until a century later. Contrast this with today, where we have a wealth of scientific knowledge at our fingertips. We've mapped the human genome, we've developed vaccines, we've even sequenced the DNA of the Yersinia pestis bacterium that caused the Black Death. These advancements have fundamentally changed the way we respond to disease outbreaks. Yet even with all our modern knowledge and technology, we still face challenges in managing pandemics. Public health measures can be met with resistance, misinformation can spread like wildfire, and inequalities can exacerbate the impact of disease. These are all echoes of the societal upheavals that occurred during the Black Death. But let's not forget the transformative power of such catastrophic events. The Black Death, in all its horror, also left a lasting legacy that shaped modern Europe. It led to major societal changes, including shifts in economic structures, advancements in public health, and a renewed focus on scientific inquiry. It even influenced the art and literature of the time, with works like Boccaccio's The Decameron, providing a stark reflection of life during the plague. The Black Death was not just a dark chapter in history, but a turning point that set the stage for the Renaissance and the modern world as we know it. The Black Death was a catastrophe of unprecedented scale, but it also shaped the course of human history in remarkable ways. So, as we navigate our own challenges with disease and public health, Let's remember the lessons of the past and continue to push forward in our pursuit of knowledge and understanding. So, we've journeyed through the dark times of the Black Death. We've explored its mysterious onset, the gruesome symptoms, and its profound societal impact. We've witnessed the aftermath and contemplated the enduring legacy of this devastating plague. This historical event serves as a stark reminder of the power of disease and the resilience of humanity. Remember, history often repeats itself, and there's always something to learn from the past. If you enjoyed our journey through the Black Death, don't forget to hit the like button, leave a comment, and subscribe for more fascinating historical deep dives.